Hello again, this is Chris Gazdick and Craig Graves with Through a Therapist. We started talking about ADD yesterday, and we're going to get really kind of more knee-deep in what is the daily impact and how do people experience life with ADD, particularly and more so as adults. This is our new format. So we have 20-minute segments 3 days a week, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So we hope you're having a good start to your week. We're going to hang with you and be with you tomorrow and hope you're enjoying that. This is not the delivery of therapy services in any way, and that's important for me to say today because as we talked about yesterday, we're kind of just looking at reviewing if Craig can remember what his thoughts were a year ago when we did a show on ADD. He was kind of thinking that it might apply to him. And he really thought it. He wasn't just playing. And so I just been thinking about it and thought it was a cool way to go through what we're talking about with adult ADD and see what he thinks applies to him and what doesn't. So he is also an Unbeatable Mind life coach. We have a book out, Re-Understanding Emotions and Becoming Your Best Self. I always like to point that out. You can find it on any platform that you find books, Amazon and Books A Million and Barnes & Noble. Dude, do you know how many places there are to buy books, Craig?
I only know of one now, Amazon.
Dude, there's like so many. I never knew.
No, I'm kidding, obviously. Yeah, Books A Million. I love to go to the bookstore, man.
I do
I think most people get their books on Amazon now.
Yeah,
but
go
I
to
can
the
go in
bookstore
and just browse. I'll get a cup of coffee and grab a book or two and sit in Joe Muggs and just read, man.
I wanted to come back.
I'm one of those geeks in there reading.
I'm all for it. I'm right with you. Matter of fact, we never did that together. We need to do that. Can we tell the public we went to the hangout at the bookstore and had coffee, and that was our that was our
Sounds
big Friday
weird,
night.
Chris. I'm not sure about that.
We're cooler than that, right?
Yeah.
BetterHelp is on the website too. Click on the counseling button and you will help the show out and help the show by getting counseling from BetterHelp.com. It gives us a little, how do you say? It gives us an.
We're an affiliate, yeah.
Affiliate.
So we get a kickback if you actually use their service. So not only are you helping yourself, but you're helping the show.
This is the human emotional experience. Let's figure this thing out. Adult ADD together. All right. I guess we're just going to go down through this list kind of slow and see what we kind of come up with, Craig, insofar as the real life nitty-gritty detail of ADD. And let me make the point. No, I need to shut up because we ended last show with you having some of the thoughts about kids that we were talking about. Let's hit that first for sure.
Yeah, I think that there's just some kids, man, who are, we take a kid who's 5 years old, who's playing all day long, who's doing his thing, and we stick him in a school and expect him to sit at his desk all day, walk down the halls in line. We basically trying to get him to conform to the norms of the school when he's been, on his own the 5 years of his life, and then when he can't do those things, we take him to a dude like you who says he's got ADD and put him on some kind of pills, So I don't know, man. It just seems like to me that some of the ADD issues we have are just basically kids being kids. And another story I'll tell you, we talked about environmental factors earlier, and I think I told this story. I know I've told it at some point. But I have a cousin, man. He's 20, I think he's 28 now. Yeah, that makes sense. So my son is a year younger than him. And so my now ex-wife and I took those boys to Atlanta to a baseball game. We went and saw the Braves play. Boo. And he ate what we ate and drank what we drank, which is basically water.
Yeah.
So when we got back to my grandmother's house, and this young man is my grandmother's great grandson. She always kept Pepsis and stuff like that for him. Dude, he sat down at the table. And it was almost like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of deal. Because as he drank his Pepsi,
yeah, right.
He morphed into somebody else.
Wired!
Yeah, so that's what I was talking about, and all these different dyes and stuff that are in our cereals and all these things all these cheap-ass foods that we feed our kids.
Are you a frou-frou health nut, man?
Yeah, and pretty much. I'm not afraid to admit that. But all this crappy food that we're giving these kids is they're off the hook.
I think so, and I wonder out loud in joining you with that, Craig. But you said something in the start of that I think is really important. You said we take these kids who've been alone for 5 years and we put them into a situation socially where they're to adjust and conform, and that is a part of what's valuable about school. And I learned it's valuable. And I'll tell you why. Because we have to learn how to play together in the sandbox, to use an expression.
I don't disagree with that.
So kindergarten teachers have taught me, when my kids were in kindergarten, that the beginning of the year is very, very different than the end of the year. The kids learn how to do constructively what we need them to do appropriately. And we had nap times and we have play times, and we understand physical education is an important part of school, playground and breaks, and we've gotten much more refined, honestly. I got a lot of criticisms. Don't go there with the public school system. I really do. I want to become president of the United States someday and just absolutely overhaul the thing. So I'm talking about in public school, but I'm saying we have learned about what kids need, physical therapy, speech therapy, these smart people with occupational therapy that we talk to on the show. They're amazing in understanding kids using balls and kids using, different things that help them grow and learn. So, but here's the thing. We all are in that. And when we're looking at ADD, we're looking at markedly people that aren't able to conform like typically kids do. So all of this stuff is a little bit more out of. That's what makes it diagnostic.
Maybe so.
It really does.
But maybe those kids need different learning environments. 60 Minutes did a segment on these kids.
I couldn't agree more.
And these kids were flunking out of school, man. They couldn't pay attention, whatever. So there's this wilderness school. So they put these kids in this wilderness school, and during the day they're climbing. I mean, like out in the West, they're climbing mountains.
No, we have that here.
They're doing
Craig. We have that
okay,
local.
Maybe we do. I don't know about those. And then at night around the campfire, they're doing their studies, and these are straight A kids.
Yes.
Man. They don't need no ADD pills so they can sit in a desk all day long.
I couldn't agree more. But what they have is something that sets them up for success. You put an ADD kid into a situation that a normal kid, not normal, I shouldn't use that word, that a more average functioning kid, right? Normal. An average kid they can't do the same thing. For instance, here's a perfect example. When you're parenting an ADD kid, the fact is, if you put an ADD kid in what is an absolutely appropriate parenting technique for typical kids, it will destroy them. You know what that parenting technique is? Time out. Right? Time out.
I imagine it does, just so they can't sit still.
They can't do it.
Yeah.
They cannot developmentally do it.
Yeah.
And when you expect an ADD person to function the same, that's where the problem is.
Yeah, but my point is I think a lot of these kids who are ADD maybe just need that alternative learning environment instead of being put on pills and made to sit in the chair and shut up.
Psychopharmacology has its place, man.
And I'm not down on education at all, but I think that when you make a kid conform, quit daydreaming. What do you think? Focus on this. A plus B equals C, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that kills creativity, dude. I really do. I think it teaches a kid to think a different way, and it kills creativity. And I don't always think it's a good thing, is what I'm saying.
I want to push back a little bit more in the sense that I agree with you passionately, because ADD kids get labeled as something they're not: lazy and stupid and disorderly conduct kids, and they're not. They're different functioning, and I have no problem with that, and they do need to be treated and managed differently. But we have to conform. We have to be able to play in the sandbox. When we're in a business team and somebody's not following through with their stuff, and we're going to go into the adult world, right? They're not able to kind of manage things the way that the job and the product demands. That's a problem. The world does not need to bend to what that person needs.
Maybe they need to be doing something different besides sitting in a job in a boardroom.
They need to figure that out.
They need to be creating something else, something new.
Couldn't agree more.
Jay Leno tells a story. I heard him tell it on Joe Rogan's show. He was a lot of the things you described on the last episode there. He couldn't pay attention, making kids laugh, class clown.
Yeah.
And so this teacher one day says, "Hey, you know what? You're not a very good student." And he's like, "What?" She said, "Yeah, you're not a very good student." She said, "But I see you making everybody laugh." She said, "I tell you what I'll do. You go home and write something, and then you come back in here and read it, and then I'll give you a grade." And so he said he went home. He sat down at his desk for 2 hours. He said he worked on this thing for 2 hours, and the time flew by as he's working on this thing, Chris. And he's like, "Holy cow, 2 hours have gone by." He said he went in the next day and did this thing in front of the class, and everybody laughed.
Yeah.
and she gave him an A. And he was like, wow, I got an A for this thing. And he said if that had not have happened, then he would have probably ended up working in a factory somewhere in his, Michigan or wherever he's from. But now we have Jay Leno and all the creativity and laughs that he's brought us because maybe he was ADD. Maybe,
well, that's what I was looking up. I tried to look it up, and I thought that I had heard somewhere. I'd heard him talk out of that story. I
think I probably played that for you.
You maybe so. It might have been around the time we did the show, to be honest with you, because that's that whole line of thinking that you're on is exactly it. we want to be able to function, and we want to be able to function well when interacting with others. And to give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about with conform, okay, because I agree with everything you're talking about, but when it's between you and your spouse, you need to be able to have that relationship. And I'm telling you, people with ADD struggle mightily in the relationships, especially close relationships with people. And we need to figure out how they can successfully navigate those challenges that their thinking patterns have, whether it be a job in the wilderness or comedy or something else. Matter of fact, I think a lot of comedians have ADD, right?
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. But another thing, too, I don't think sitting in a desk at school 8 hours a day is going to help you have a solid marriage when you get older. Now, I know you're saying you're arguing it helps you build social skills. But I'm sure these kids who are climbing mountains during the day and studying at night around the campfire are building social skills to some level. So,
well, my point in sitting there in the schoolhouse is because I think we need to overhaul schools. I don't think many kids should be sitting in desks. I think desks should be gone almost.
I'll go with that too.
OT people need to be in schools. I'm sorry. They need to be the teachers. Hire freaking occupational therapist people to be teachers. Nothing against our teachers. They're wonderful. I don't want anybody to give me hate mail and shoot me down for that.
Yeah, I got a teacher who will beat our asses if she hears that.
I believe it. They do a great job in if they were allowed to do their job, by the way. Oh my God, we are divulging into frustration with schools. It's not about sitting there. It's about how most people have to conform and sit there, and the ones that struggle more are the ones that we can identify with ADD. It makes it easier to identify because all of the kids are doing it, and the kids that are struggling for a very specific reason.
Yeah, and I think that, maybe I'm sure there are examples of kids who need ADD medicine and stuff like that.
Thank you for that, Craig.
But you know what, Chris? I'm pretty certain that if that kid I talked about earlier would have quit drinking sodas, he could have probably dropped pills.
Yeah, and he probably didn't have ADD. He might not have ADD.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's overdiagnosed. And
it is. It is at times. It's an easy fix. Pop some Adderall, pop some Focalin, and problems fixed, and people are just getting a little bit of energy from it. But if you have it, by the way, if you have caffeine. And if you have, Adderall and the stimulant medications and you get hyped up like that, it probably means you don't have ADD because it really actually helps you just center down and be calmer.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah, ADD kids will have coffee a lot of times, and it just doesn't hype them up. They love it,
Well, definitely did my cousin.
Yeah, and you know what else ADD, particularly teenagers, like? Weed.
Really?
Yeah. It's maddening to sit here and try to have a conversation when you would think about what I had for dinner and what my workout's going to be, and then I realize that I got to go to bed early because I got something else in the morning, and that report that I got to do in the morning is something that I forgot to do last week, and it's just. But I'm talking to you. Yeah. I'm with you.
I'm laughing because I think that probably all kids like weed.
That's so.
We better move on with that one.
ADD kids like weed though because it centers that hyper thinking that I just showed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into it as we go down through the list here. Appearing not to care about your partner. That's a big adult impact on a day-to-day level.
For ADD?
Yes.
For adult ADD?
Okay. All of these things that we're going to go through today and tomorrow now are kind of my list and generated thoughts about, what happens in a day-to-day basis in the life of ADD, And I want to make the point here. Big dramatic pause. When you're looking at how ADD affects people in daily life, you will hear yourself in some of these. Craig, if you go down through all of these and you're like, no, that doesn't apply, no, that doesn't apply, no, that doesn't apply, I'm going to leave here tonight thinking Craig absolutely missed it because these absolutely do apply to us. It's as a matter of fact, one of the ways that I've kind of helped myself understand ADD, Craig?
Yeah.
Is when you have that sleepless night, you know how you miss sleep, or maybe you get 2 or 3 hours, something's on your mind, you're worrying, you wake up that next morning and that next day, you can't think straight. Like, your brain is drifty. That's a really good understanding of ADD, where you just off. You're not quite clicking. You're not quite thinking straight. And you're not quite thinking from one thought to the next. It's a tough day. You're not clear. You're not clear-minded. That's kind of what the inattentive person struggles with. Things just invade impulsively into their thoughts, and their attention goes off to multiple directions. They can't just stay here for a long time, quietly, patiently, directedly, fully intact with this conversation.
Got it.
Right? So we don't want one of these, you got ADD. We're looking at, this is the whole kind of characterization of what life kind of is like. Appears not to care about their partner is something that's on the list, in so far as, when I'm talking to you, Craig, and you're drifting off and you're kind of doing other things or whatever, it kind of really feels like you're just not here, right? You're just not fully listening and entrenched in what I'm saying. And a partner will kind of feel like, you know what, you just don't care about what I'm saying. You're not.
Yeah.
I'm not important. It's did you not remember that I told you that? Like, how can you not remember?
Yeah.
ADD people will hear this kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's not me, bud.
Okay. Yeah. But partners will feel that way, and they will get that. And it's maddening to feel like, you just didn't remember what we talked about, and didn't remember what we did and said, and you're doing something else, and your head, that's something that happens. It's probably really one of the biggest things in a marriage is the partner kind of really feels like you're not listening, you're not caring, you're not really dialed in here with me in the moment for the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think that's me. So, I mean, I'm not sure if you want me to comment on each of these as you go through them.
I don't know how we want to do
trying
that.
to figure out what made me think that might be me last time we were on the show. But
Yeah.
last time we did the show on ADD. But I don't, that's definitely not something I think that I would say is me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you comment about that as you go. I mean, I feel weird about it because I don't want to diagnose you anyway and try to go with that.
Yeah, right,
struggling
right.
with how to do this show in the first place.
Yeah.
It really was. That's why I asked you like 4 times. Are you sure you want to do it that way? Is that all right? That's before the
Well,
mics
yeah,
came
I mean,
on,
I
did
think
that.
it's fine. Like I said, I can always edit.
That's true. Not a go-getter or not taking actions is another thing that I put on a list. Being action-oriented and being, developing a plan, following the plan, and following through with the plan and taking actions is something that ADD people struggle with. They got great plans, or they got great actions, or they got good, keyword, impulses. But like setting a date, having a plan, getting a deadline, starting a project, working on it all the way through until it's finished, that tends to struggle.
Yeah.
Because they'll start one task and move to another.
I think I have pieces of that probably when I think about it. But if it's something I'm passionate about and something that I want to do, I'm normally getting it done.
And I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Go ahead if you're.
So if I know, especially when we did that last one, I was stretched pretty thin. I was doing a lot of different things. Excuse me. So that I may have felt that way before, but I feel like with the things I'm doing now, I'm pretty much getting after it and getting it done.
And that's cool that you said that, because I said that to a parent just the other day. They were confused about like, well, no, actually, I just said that. I said, and sometimes, you can get really a hyper focus on something, and the mom just shot a look at me like, what did you just say? And I'm like, oh yeah, because, when something's interesting to an ADD person, and particularly an adult, they'll really dig into that. I mean, their hobbies are their hobbies, and they really dig it. And so when they're interested in something, they're clicking with it. They're staying mindful on it and learning everything about it because it's got them. But with something that doesn't have them, then they're just drifty. They just don't want to stay focused on it.
Yeah.
The business meetings where they're, pulling out crossword puzzles and literally thinking about their grocery list and stuff like that instead of being in the business meeting.
Well, there are things that I don't want to do that I still get done, right? I mean, pay the bills, get groceries, or,
yeah, right.
Stuff like that. And I always do a good job in my work though. So, but I can get hyper focused. So who knows, man?
I know you're a hard worker, that's for sure. Some of the same things with kids, poor impulse control, and I told you about the ditzy and flighty lady, that she just had the reputation of being silly. All her friends just thought that's just Sally or whatever. Communication with spouse. I think I said maybe spend enough time on that with, before in the comments of not caring about the person or not listening.
Yeah.
Communication is really struggle.
Well, man, I am divorced, so maybe I do have the first.
Let's ask her, man. She should be here, man.
No, we won't ask her. No,
we don't want to ask her. Their career potential. Let's maybe sit on this for a second, and then maybe we'll come back and finish our list next show. This is just Chris Gazdik's view, honestly, but I find that, incidentally, it also kind of happens with engulfment, I think. People just tend, I think, when they get flighty or disorganized with their life plan and process and whatnot, they just really tend to stay stuck. They kind of spin their wheels a little bit. They got a career plan, they got a path and things they're thinking about, but they just don't quite get clicking on, taking the necessary steps to get to where they need to be. I'll tell you, like nursing, like to become a nurse practitioner, for instance, that is a lot of school. There's a lot of information. You have to really be on point to learn all those things, because you go to the, basic nurse, and you go to undergrad nurse, and you go to grad nurse, and you go to like a medical school nurse, and then you specialize in family and whatever. I mean, you've got to really have, I might say there is no nurses that have ADD that are practitioners. That sounds like a crazy statement. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. But you see what I mean?
Yeah.
People tend to get stuck in where they're at. And they think about, well, I could do that, but they're still stuck. Well, I could do that, and they're still stuck. I could go over there, I could change course, but they're still stuck, and they just kind of stay there.
I think that happens a lot, though, doesn't it? I mean, people I talk to, and from a coaching standpoint, a lot of people are stuck in stuff they don't like doing, and they just stay there for various reasons. They're just grinding through to retirement. It's Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but yeah, in a job where you had to progress to get to, you can get stuck. And I'll remind you, not any one of these is going to be ADD. You got to think of the whole full picture. Like, several of these things are clicking at somebody when you're kind of looking at these things for yourself.
Yeah.
Because there are. We did a show on stuck spots, and I think we didn't talk about ADD.
Yeah.
you know. What are you thinking so far? And then we'll come back and maybe finish off, a good detailed list of things that happen in day-to-day life.
I think it's very interesting, and I think a lot of people may fall into some of these categories. I do think that's possible.
When we come back to the show tomorrow, Craig, I want to challenge you, and again, I really want to say we're going to get a big high five a little bit too at the end of. See, because we record these all at once and we release them in pieces. That's the way we're doing it. So I wanted to give you a high five at the end of episode, the first one. And we're gonna do a high five. It's tradition.
Lord.
I'll remind you next show what that means, audience. But no, I really, it is courageous to kind of talk about these things in a way of personal revelation. I appreciate you doing that. And I want you to think about something too when we hit this tomorrow. I noticed feedback to you. Remember when we did a little short? Why is Craig calm? You remember that?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. That could be my favorite behind the EFT episodes, for real.
Tell us why and what that was about. Do you remember? Of course you remember.
Yeah, I think it's on the site somewhere. We were doing a little sound check, and we always test the mics. And Chris just asked me a question. He said, "Hey, you seem calmer lately. What are you doing?" And, I shared with him that I had kind of gone a little bit deeper on my breathing practices and stuff like that. And actually, my kids had kind of noticed that too, so which was really cool that you noticed as well. But that was what that was about. Yeah.
And it occurred to me as we were talking and going back and forth of, you're like, that's not me, and that's not me, and that's not me. I wanted to make the point, Craig, that honestly, I feel like a year ago, you correct me if I'm wrong, see how this fits. A year ago, you very much were like serious, and that's what surprised me, that you didn't really think about it anymore. Because I would have thought you really would have thought about it and kind of been thinking, does this apply and does this not? Like, wow, that really hit. And looking around really inside your head and in your heart to see if it applies or not, because I would want to know, right? And you didn't. You just kind of moved on from it. But if I recall correctly, that was episode 41. So what was that? That was a while ago, man. That was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
we started doing those shorts about a year ago.
Yeah.
And you really stepped up, I think, at that point, because you were doing a lot of training and, doing some mental training as well as physical training, and you were in that spot.
Yeah.
And to me, it was noticeable. And then you're telling me to your kids, it was also noticeable. And so I want to submit for your own browsing through your mind, and as we're doing this tomorrow, to think these things might not apply as much because maybe it is so that you have ADD, but you're also managing it really well.
That's an interesting theory, too.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I noticed it. And multiple people around you noticed a marked change.
Yeah.
And that's possible with ADD.
Could be.
I mean, dude, you breathing practice 20 minutes in the morning. That has a neurological impact, bro. Like, that might be really addressing a lot of the things that you used to feel strung out with and don't anymore as much.
Well, that's an interesting theory there. I hadn't thought about that.
You know?
Yeah.
So it occurred to me when we were talking earlier. I thought I'd
Yeah.
put it out, and maybe that's a
pretty
good
cool.
way to wind out, and we'll see what happens tomorrow with this stuff. Sound okay with you?
Sounds good.
All right, guys, you have a great day. We're going to plug in, finish up daily impacts of ADD tomorrow. Take care.